guys, welcome back to your next Gaming Oddities. This is a series where I go into odd gaming devices that developers made to try to get us more into the game mentally or physically, many having influences way beyond the years that they were active. Today, well, in a way, yes, because we're going to look at another unique one that was trying to push us into the realm of online gaming a bit before it was more widely ready. Because today I have for you the Super Famicom Satellaview.
世界初衛星データ放送か。これからは宇宙からゲームが降ってくるってわけだ。
その通り。このサテラビューをスーパーファミコンと合体させて BS 受信システムに接続すれば、タモリや内田有紀らがお送りする超面白ゲームプログラムが毎日無料で楽しめる。聞く、見る、遊ぶ、参加する。サテラビュー。
Now, for those of you who've been following the channel, you may know we've covered some devices like this before, namely the Sega Network, in which you could mail in a fee of around $200. You could have shipped to you a cartridge that would plug into your Genesis, and using its own power supply would allow you to go online and use what is known as the Sega Network. You could also often get this directly from your cable provider, primarily Time Warner Cable at the time. This was a fairly widely released device, if not very well known, but what many of you may not know is that Nintendo also tried something similar in the form of a device called the Satellaview. The Satellaview was a device that plugged into the bottom of the Super Famicom by opening an expansion port located on that bottom and simply plugging it in. The user would then hook up the power supply and connect it to an AV selector, which would have connections to the satellite dish, the console, and the TV. It also had an odd power transfer bracket that I believe was used to transfer power through the new configuration into the Satellaview and then into the Famicom itself. That way you wouldn't require multiple power bricks in order to use the system. Who knew? Single power cable. Obviously don't talk to Sega. It's an odd but fairly intelligent solution to a very common problem that Sega struggled with for years. What makes the Satellaview unique from the Sega Network is, well, everything pretty much. What I mean by that is, while it was still essentially a satellite/cable modem, what it offered was, well, very different. Let me explain. While the Sega Network would offer games to download to the cartridge's RAM itself for use while connected to the system, allowing for some sort of Game Pass-like system to be in play, the Satellaview did actual broadcasts. So every day between April 23rd, 1995 to June 30th of 2000, people could turn their console on and tune into these encrypted broadcasts that the Satellaview alone could decrypt. These broadcasts would have a regular schedule, allowing people to adjust their daily schedule to account to needing to be home and online to receive them. These broadcasts were primarily used for specific games that would be something called SoundLink. Now, SoundLink compatible games, pretty much all of which were designed by Nintendo, would allow the ability to download software data along with streaming of a satellite radio broadcast in order to create a unique experience in which users would play a game that's in sync with the accompanying audio presentation. One of the most popular and well-known titles to use this would be the BS The Legend of Zelda, that stands for Broadcast Satellite. Most, if all not all of these games, would be divided into multiple episodes, which would be broadcast multiple times a week, then followed by the next episode the following week. This would allow most people who had the service time to catch a broadcast and catch up before the next in the series was released. In order to provide continuity between episodes, saved data from that session could be stored on a device called a BS-X. This was an additional cartridge that the player could slot a memory pack into that would allow them to store up to 8 meg of data. Games that worked with this would be marked with a BS-X preference. However, you didn't have to use this data if you didn't want to. You could simply start up in the middle of an episode and start playing if you so chose. The games were also often rebroadcast past the first week as reruns to give players even more opportunities to play through each episode of the game in question. Now, this wasn't the only thing that the service offered. It also carried a series of magazines and game add-ons. The add-ons would be similar to modern-day DLC in that you could download new characters and levels for existing games that used the service. The data would be downloaded to the BS-X application cartridge that had the memory pack slotted into it. Magazines on the service could also be downloaded in a similar manner, with many of those including strategy guides, periodicals, and SoundLink enhanced periodicals, I guess meaning that they would read them to you. It also included popular magazines like Famitsu and Nintendo Power. Reception on this went rather well, at least as far as St. Giga, which was the company that Nintendo had partnered with to provide the satellite service for the system. However, Nintendo wasn't so confident. Firstly, they were having issues with St. Giga, who had financial issues and refused to work with Nintendo on any of the financial consolidation plans that they had come up with, leading to some growing tension between the two companies. Secondly, the release of newer consoles was also putting pressure on Nintendo, namely the Sega Saturn and the PlayStation. They needed a new console, and this wasn't bringing in enough revenue to keep the partnership going when they needed something like their eventual Nintendo 64 to compete with the more advanced machines at the time. This led to the main breakdown and eventual demise of the system. As far as influence, this, like the Sega network, set a lot of the groundwork for what would become much of our online culture. These were the experiments, in taking consoles online and offering new services that many of us had not experienced before, leading the way to new ideas and reuse of some of these ideas years past when they both shut down. What do you guys think of this thing? Have any of you ever actually had a chance to play this add-on for the Super Famicom? If so, what did you think about it? Have any of you ever tried to emulate it, and what were the results? Let me know in the comments, but for now, thank you for spending part of your day with me. If I could impose on you one more time to do me one more favor, please leave this video a like. It really helps me out. And if you haven't, consider subscribing. That also helps me out a ton. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy gaming.